Despite the huddles in China, K-pop has been receiving quite a bit of media attention over in the US in recent days. We tell you why on Press Perspective today. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of Press Perspective for December 17th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. The investment company of American rapper and entrepreneur Jay-Z is partnering with South Korea's Hanwha Asset Management to set up a private equity vehicle for the Korean wave. For more on this, I have Celio Fioretti with French daily Croix here in the studio. Celio, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
I also have Bernie Cho, the head of DFSB Kollective, a South Korean music distribution company, live on the line. Bernie, it's been a while and a pleasure to have you with us.
No, it's good to be back.
Right, we shall start here in the studio. Celio, let's start with details about this partnership between Jay-Z's company and South Korea's Hanwha Asset Management.
As you mentioned, Jay-Z investment firm Mercy Pen Capital Partners is teaming up with Hanwha Asset Management, the financial arm of one of the biggest conglomerates here in South Korea, to launch a $500 million private equity fund. The target is very clear. It's the K-pop, K-beauty, K-food, K-entertainment and lifestyle sector that are already begin to expand internationally. This matters because until now, the Korean wave has been working or relied only on domestic funding from companies here. And what this new investment brings is a third-party global partnership with also bringing some know-how because Jay-Z's investment firm has been already investing a lot in the US in the same sector, in entertaining industry, food and beauty. So they know how to also maybe export well, answer to the demand abroad, outside of Korea. And the timing is not accidental. Korean culture, Korean wave has exploded worldwide. Groups like BTS, Blackpink are filling up all the stadiums in the world. And Korean dramas also dominate the platforms online. Korean food, Korean beauty is taking a bigger space in the global market. So right now, it's a good time for global investor, to bring money. And last year alone, Korean wave only, which is K-beauty, K-drama, movies, entertainment, music, generated more than $30 billion globally, making it South Korea's second largest consumer export product after automobiles. And also in Korea nowadays, there's a strong also policy backdrop to it because the Korean government invested a lot to make the Korean culture a diplomatic asset. And it's always something that comes into the negotiation with other leaders because they know people abroad, like in Europe, in the US, or even South America, the people consume Korean products. So it will be a good leverage in negotiation to bring in the discussion with other leaders. So all that really shows that now it's a serious business, the Korean culture, and investment like Jay-Z really show that investors abroad now consider Korean culture a good market to invest, a good serious business that will be promising for future cooperation.
Right. Bernie, what are your takeaways with regard to this initiative? I mean, simply speaking, what makes it so significant, so exciting?
Well, I think for a lot of not just fans, but more importantly, I think analysts, the announcement caught a lot of people by surprise, but at the same time, it wasn't really a big surprise. And again, I'm going to essentially, instead of, plagiarize, I'd rather sort of give a shout out and quote to one of the financial news analysts in Korea, because obviously when this news broke, it went viral, not just in the United States, but obviously in Korea. And I thought it was absolutely amazing, borderline amusing, that one of the financial analysts on one of the Korean TV networks said it best by quoting Jay-Z himself. And this is a quote from one of his classic collabs with Kanye West, the song from Diamonds from Sierra Leone, the remix. Jay-Z, in his own words, I think said it best. He just got to the point. It's not just poetic, got to the point. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. We have to understand that Jay-Z, and again, I love the fact that the Korean press referred to him constantly as Beyonce's husband. That, by the way, is a fantastic job, but he's so much more. Jay-Z, along with a generation of not just hip-hop artists, but hip-hop entrepreneurs, they managed to figure out a way to make hip-hop, which started in its origins humbly as a very niche African-American inspired, driven music genre, into a global lifestyle cultural movement. Jay-Z has figured out a way on how to make and help Black culture go from a moment to momentum to a movement. And so obviously there's a lot of expectations that in some way, shape, or form, if Jay-Z and his team over at Marcy Penn can apply that experience and can apply that expertise that was, demonstrated vis-a-vis through hip-hop to K-pop, it obviously has generated tremendous excitement. One of the things I think is interesting is we're starting to see a transition in the terminology in light of this particular announcement. We talk about K-pop, we talk about K-pop culture, the Korean wave, Hallyu, but now it's, I think, transcended and perhaps transformed into now we have to talk about not just K-culture, but more and more K-lifestyle. And again, in terms of scale, that quote related to K-pop culture, exports being second behind automobiles, really to amplify just how big this particular market is the fact that right now K-pop culture, again, content, food, beauty, fashion combined is not only $31 billion plus a year in exports, but more importantly is that when we think about traditionally household brands from Korea, whether it be in consumer electronics to smartphones, we're talking in terms of scale, it's nearly 4 times bigger than Korean consumer goods exports, consumer electronics exports, I should say, and over 9 times bigger than Korean mobile phones. And so when we think about not just Korean brands, we now have to think about Korean bands as well as being as big or bigger exports. And so for that reason alone, and frankly for many reasons, a lot of people are very much inspired by this announcement that one of the heavies in hip hop has decided to become a mover, a shaker, and more importantly, a power player in K-pop and K-pop culture.
Right. Bernie, I was actually going to ask you about the size of the Hallyu exports in recent years, but you've already touched on that. That being said, that you run a music exports company as well, Bernie. What do you suppose are the implications of such initiatives for companies like yours?
I think it creates not just an aura, but a halo effect. And no pun intended, when we talk about the Korea wave, it's really, I think, going to amplify the ripple effect. Right now, when we look at different sectors of the Korean wave, K-pop year on year experienced 73% growth. Webtoons and comics experienced 60% growth. K-beauty, 20% growth, and K-food, 10% year-on-year growth from 2023 to 2024. And so for all of these sectors now to be looked at with a new lens, with new optics, there's a new narrative in the sense that we talk about K-pop culture. It's not just about TV, films, music, or video games. We now have to bundle the package with K-beauty, K-fashion, and K-cosmetics. And K-beauty, K-food, and K-fashion.
Right, indeed. K-lifestyle in total then. Right, Celio, against this backdrop, a former U.S. National Security Advisor recently wrote an opinion piece about BTS hitting, and I'm quoting him, the right note with regard to wielding cultural power. Do tell us who he is, what he said exactly, and why this matters.
Exactly, the former U.S. National Security Advisor said something that is really noteworthy in that it treats BTS not as a K-pop group, but as a strategic soft power asset for Korea. His core argument, as you mentioned, is that BTS hit the right spot, the right note, by choosing to complete their mandatory military service at the height of their global fame, rather than seeking exemption that would have been granted probably by the government. At the time, critics warned that it would derail their careers. Instead, he argues that it did the opposite. It enhanced their credibility, both from abroad, but also by showing that even the world's biggest stars are subject to the same civic duties as ordinary citizens. And he draws a parallel with Elvis Presley, serving in the US Army during the Cold War, a moment that strengthened American cultural authority rather than weakening it. And why this matters goes even beyond BTS. The former advisor framed soft power as a national resource, just like economic or military power. While it's created by artists and private companies, it benefits the country as a whole in the form of influence and growth, as we mentioned, with exporting cultural products abroad. And for that, South Korea now has become an expert in transforming a cultural topic into an engine of growth for the country, with movies, with music, with food, with fashion, and without heavy-handed state control. It's mostly run by the private, even though the government did help and push forward in its communication, the global K-wave, but still it remains all private. And the essay from the advisor also carries a warning. It criticized that South Korea's tendency to subject successful cultural entrepreneurs to intense scrutiny once they reach a bigger scale might discourage this kind of risk-taking strategy that made BTS possible in the first place. But other countries like China also are trying to mimic the strategy of Korea and how to make a homegrown cultural industry that can export successfully abroad. For now, only, I would say, Korea and the US have managed to have this really wide range of public all across the globe. But a lot of countries are now sort of jealous of it and want to mimic it.
Right. Bernie, what are your thoughts with regard to this opinion piece by the former National Security Advisor O'Brien? And what do you suppose would be needed to ensure some constructive support for creative individuals and companies in the long run?
Well, I'm a little bit mixed. On one hand, I was very impressed by sort of the insight in his analysis of the success of not just K-pop culture, but more importantly, sort of K-pop Korean soft power. And I like the fact that he accurately described that, yes, government did have a role, but they were not the only, players in this space. Gave credit, and a lot of credit was due to a lot of the creative entrepreneurs who helped the Korean wave become what it is today. So on that front, and on those regards, I am in total agreement. However, the sort of implied messaging towards the end, which is essentially these creative entrepreneurs, what struck me was the imperfect comment, because essentially what was implied was that South Korea should not go after these imperfect creative entrepreneurs. And that messaging, to me, I was a little bit mixed, because right now, as we speak, a lot of these creative industry entrepreneurs are accused of very serious allegations and very serious crimes that should not be in some way, shape, or form conflated as being part and parcel of finding success. Right now, a lot of these top Korean music companies, entertainment companies, media companies, they're all publicly traded on the Korean stock exchanges. And so they are held to a higher level of not just transparency, accuracy, but more importantly, accountability. And so again, the implied messaging that somehow in some way, shape, or form, bad actors, creative entrepreneurs, to somehow be given a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more leeway to find success, but possibly maybe vis-a-vis through some shortcuts. To me, that really sort of took the exclamation point, good points that he made, and twisted it and turned it into a bit of a question mark.
All right, definitely something to think about. Celia, moving forward, you recently wrote about K-pop and its status quo over in China. Could you tell us a bit about your coverage?
Exactly. So to start from the beginning, that motivated also this whole story, the K-pop economic model is now facing a sort of stagnation with the album sales, even though still labels are in the green in terms of revenue. Fans are starting to be a bit tired of what appears to be a lack of renewal of the genre. And so now Korean K-pop companies are looking to expand to other markets to maybe find other public to sell also the merchandise, but also attract maybe new listeners and grow their album sales. And one of the biggest market in the world will be China. And for now, still, around 25% of Korean export in K-pop are directed to China, but still China has a non-official ban of South Korean cultural content. It started back in 2016 when Korea accepted to host American missile on its soil, which China obviously didn't like as a political move and geostrategic move, and decided to ban, in a tacit way, every cultural export from South Korea. So still today, South Korean K-pop artists cannot host a concert in China. They can do fan meeting events, like signing albums, but not much more than that. And that block a major part of the revenue for K-pop labels. Many attempts have been made over the last decade to try to break in and try to negotiate with China to open it. What we're seeing these days is that even though it's very difficult, with this wave of trying to make warmer relations with Beijing initiated by the government, the K-pop labels wants to get along with it. And we have seen some small development. We know that KBS and the Chinese Broadcasting Company have made an agreement to maybe export more cultural programs on TV into the Chinese market. Let's see if that can happen also with album sales and concerts. But for now, we're still facing a lot of difficulty. There's some hope, but we know that the region is also a home to many tensions. We see now with Japan and China a lot of tension. We don't know what the future will be, but for example, these days what we're seeing is that K-pop bands that have some Japanese members are facing backlash in China because of the anti-Japanese sentiment, and same in Japan with K-pop bands with Chinese members are facing a lot of backlash. So K-pop now is in the middle of a big battle that really should not be the case. It should not matter to K-pop, but they somehow end up in the middle of this geopolitical battle, and that will be the hardest one to deliver for an industry that is not ready for that kind of higher scale combat and diplomacy.
Right, and speaking as an industry insider then, Bernie, what has been the relevance of the Chinese market with regard to the growth of K-pop, and how do you believe have diplomatic matters affected K-pop's presence in the neighboring country?
Well, again, I think when we talk about the de facto THAAD ban on K-pop music, it's not a complete ban on K-pop. I think we really need to emphasize it's a ban on K-pop live concerts and anything live in person, be it fan meetings as well. Even with the ban, according to Korean government statistics, China is still the third largest physical album export market behind Japan and the U.S. Right now, when the government surveys have taken a look at the global Korean wave, but more importantly, K-pop fans, fan club members worldwide, China is far and away the biggest market for K-pop fan club members. It currently accounts for 43.6% of global fan club members. And again, according to Korean government statistics, even with this ban in effect, Chinese K-pop fans, whether it's vis-a-vis through digital streaming or through buying albums in China, they're the sixth largest in terms of superfan spending. Chinese K-pop fans are spending nearly 80% of what US K-pop fans are currently spending. So the market is still very much big, but obviously there's room to be much, much bigger. And part and parcel, hand in hand, is the fact that a lot of the Korean artists want to connect, want to reach out, and want to profiteer from the ability to have live shows, live concerts, and endorsement deals and whatnot, just more on the ground in-person activities in the mainland. And again, the thing is, China, if we want to future-proof the K-pop industry, China, we know, is the fifth largest recorded music market, but it's the second largest digital music market in the world. The individual music services in China, the number one DSP being Tencent, music entertainment, is over 5 times bigger than the entire Korean music market in terms of streaming music revenues. And even the number 2 service in China, NetEase Cloud Music, is nearly 2 times bigger than the entire Korean streaming music market. And so how the Korean and more importantly the Chinese governments somehow figure out a way to collaborate on thawing sort of the chill at the moment is obviously very important for the industry. And it's something that, not just year to year, month to month, but really now week to week, we have to keep very close tabs on all the latest developments. But, for any political power that wants to basically flex, going after pop culture in Korea, unfortunately, makes too much sense because, as I mentioned before, it is the second largest consumer goods export out of Korea. And if you want to throw a punch, going after pop culture from Korea is unfortunately a very effective political economic tool.
Right. Meanwhile, Celio, there are some who believe that K-pop is losing its South Korean fan base given its greater embrace of English lyrics and its shorter tracks which cater to an international audience and fan base. What are your thoughts?
Well, there is some truth to that perception when you talk to people, but it's more accurate, let's say, to say that K-pop is evolving rather than abandoning its Korean base. As K-pop became a global industry, its priorities have inevitably changed to fit other demands. And when you see that Western market, for example, the US, European market, or even South American market, are much bigger than the Korean one, it's understandable that companies will try to shift their priorities to meet those demands. And that also means they all tailor their music to how the market, the music industry works. And these days, the music industry works with shorter tracks, better fit for TikTok or YouTube Shorts. So they need to adapt to that to reach more people. And for a long time, Korean fans felt this sort of shift alienating, losing this. What they felt was the core of K-pop was maybe longer songs in Korean with really distinctive part, like a chorus or a bridge. And that sort of things no longer dominates Korean K-pop industry. And even in Korea, when you look at the charts, K-pop doesn't dominate the chart, the music chart every month. But what it shows is that the Korean music ecosystem here has much diversified over the last years with more indie artists and different type of genre becoming popular and having more room, more investment, more money to create something new, and having a country that doesn't only is known for K-pop but also for its other type of music. And that's something also we see with the international fan. Sometimes they start with K-pop but then they get curious to know about other type of artists. And I think that's just a way to show that K-pop is not something very uniquely Korean anymore. It's something that has become part of a global culture that every country can now sort of take a share, a part of it, and become part of the K-pop. It's not only anymore a Korean thing. It remains Korean deep in its heart, but it's something shared among the whole global community now.
Right, indeed, as is K-lifestyle, as Bernie was saying earlier. I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Celio, thank you so much for your thoughts. And Bernie, all the way in LA, thank you very much for your insights today.
Thank you for having me.
Right, that ends this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll return same time tomorrow, so do join us then.